Damps.
What's poppin'? My name is Sage. I'm a non-surgical hair replacement specialist. I do hair units and SMP, scalp micropigmentation. I don't have anything to sell you in this video. I'm just here to shed some light because I know hair loss is very tough for a lot of people, and there's not too many people you could talk about or channels you can go to, especially as a black man, for some reassurance. Lately though, there's been a lot of black hair transplants that have been popping up on YouTube, and I've fell down that rabbit hole of watching a lot of these videos. Super interesting, the experience America versus Turkey. Today, specifically, we're going to be watching a YouTuber, black male, who got a hair transplant in the USA. So the biggest thing usually when people choose between the USA and Turkey, it comes down typically to the price. Because if the price was a little more cost efficient in America, or just in people's budgets in America, they'd probably stay in America to do the hair transplant. Yeah, this is just an interesting movement that's going on right now. And ever since I started treating hair loss for men, I've come to understand that it's a traumatic experience to lose your hair, a very traumatic experience. If you have any questions at all, you can send us a message on Instagram at Damps, DAMPS, or you can send us an email, info@hairbychoice.com. I'll leave any details to contact us down below.
How much does a hair transplant cost? It depends. Some places charge by the case, anywhere from $10,000 upwards of $25,000, and other places, like my clinic, will charge per graft. We personally charge between $6 and $8 per graft, depending on how we do the extraction process and the difficulty of the case, but every place is different. Paying more doesn't necessarily mean you're getting a better result. Take a look at this question.
So yeah, essentially, it's either you're paying per graft, so $6 to $8, around 100 hairs per square inch on your head. So $6 per graft. That probably does seem a little better than the $10,000 to $25,000, because I've seen places that kind of show their prices starting at $10,000. We're gonna get right into the video that I was talking about, and this is I Am Rio P. So he's the guy who's going to be getting the hair transplant at Bosley, and he's going to discuss his experience going through the consultation and all that. So I really wonder what he's going to be fixing too with this hair transplant.
In this video, I'm going to be telling you why I decided to get the hair transplant, where I got the hair transplant at, how many grafts I got, how much I paid, and why I decided to do the FUT procedure.
So there's two different types of hair transplant styles. There's FUT and FUE. Those are the two most popular. But anyways, the difference between the two, FUT is where they pull a strip. With FUT, you'll always have a scar. You'll have a scar because they're ripping a strip of skin out, taking those hairs out individually out of that strip and plugging them in. FUE is where they would take individual units out of your head. The more popular hair transplant because, again, it doesn't leave a scar, the hair grows over it, it looks clean.
I was doing a lot of vlogging. I had a separate channel where I vlogged a lot. That vlogging consisted of me just bringing you along with me when I went to work, grocery shopping, just random life stuff that we all do. While doing those things, I never wore hats. Let me tell you that those comments were like roasting me. I knew that I was eventually going to face hair loss. I didn't realize how drastic it had gotten at that point. My comments in those early days, like, man, my hairline was getting roasted, and I didn't realize how bad it was. I'm gonna be real, it made me a little bit self-conscious of my hairline. If this many people are roasting me and making fun of me, I just had to do something about it. And maybe I didn't have to, but I wanted to.
Bro, you know what I find crazy about this whole hair loss journey as well is that the way we get on each other as men, the way we hate on each other, the way people are keyboard warriors are hating is crazy because we all are going to experience it at some point, right? I don't get it. 66% of men experience hair loss before the age of 35. It's a fact. And hair loss too is a sensitive subject, a very sensitive subject. I didn't know it until I got into the hair replacement stuff. It is extremely sensitive and traumatic in a lot of cases.
Keep in mind that I just didn't want to lose my hair, and to be reminded of that and how big my forehead was and how bad I was receding, it was a wake-up call like, yo, you have to do something. You have to be a little bit more proactive before it becomes too late. I did research of what I could do, and the only thing that I really had an option of was a hair transplant.
And hair transplants obviously the most popular right now, especially with people vlogging and sharing their experience on YouTube. It's the most popular when it comes to hair loss treatments. But I wonder if he knew about hair units. You know what I mean? Because the types of results that you get from hair units, you can't get from hair transplants. It's just, when you look at it, you have a perfect, full density, full hairline. Everything's custom cut to your head, right? And they last 3 to 6 months, even more if you know how to take care of it. I wonder if you knew about that. Throw away the stigma of it not actually being your hair growing out of your actual head. The results for hair units, and once you learn how to take care of them, absolutely impeccable.
I do the research. I'm looking at the hair transplant cost, because that's the main thing we all want to know, is how much this is going to cost. I decided to make a consultation with the only hair transplant clinic that I really knew of, and that was Bosley. I was able to schedule a consultation.
Bosley should have paid him for this.
Office here in Columbus, Ohio. And I went to the consultation, sat down with the counselor that works there. His name is Greg, very cool guy. Greg just kind of just showed me the progression of my hair loss and where it was at. Even then, I still didn't realize how bad it was. It was like, hey, you do have male pattern baldness. And if you don't do something, you will lose all your hair, at least the top of it, right? He went through my treatment plans and what my options were for a hair transplant. He went through the differences of an FUT and an FUE. He tells me the cost, looking at $8,000 to $10,000, or if not more. My heart sank because I wasn't expecting to hear that. Like, I did the research, but again, that's one of those things where you can't get an exact amount, how much it's gonna cost you, until you sit down with some of these doctors.
So we're gonna zoom in a bit. He said $8,000 to $10,000. So he's in that range right here. Cost per graft would be approximately $8 to $9. But yeah, he's just covering, and that's a Norwood. Was that Norwood 3? So he's just really filling in these gaps right here. These gaps, these corners. Wow. So that's not even including the middle. And a lot of times, as you lose hair, like in these spots right here, it kind of works its way around. So that's hectic. That will probably require a second hair transplant down the line, filling in those spots as well.
In these clinics, so they can tell you, one, how many grafts they're going to estimate you're going to need. And even then, it's just an estimate. When they go in and they're doing surgery, it can be a little bit less, it can be a little bit more. So I didn't know how much it was going to cost me. But I left that clinic that day just feeling defeated. I want to say maybe a few weeks to a month or so after my first consultation, he reaches out to me and tells me like, hey, you know, I know money is a concern for you, but we do have an option where we have patient standby. And I had no clue what that even was. And aside from that, I even did some more research and saw that some guys were getting botched. They would get the hair transplant and just not see results. He explained to me like that can happen. There is no guarantee that if you have a hair transplant, that is going to be successful. But he was very convincing, you know, and their staff and the doctors, and the best job that they could do for me. I'm one of those people that's
a fact too. So the marketing for hair transplants is absolutely incredible right now. But unlike the other plastic surgeries, because typically doctors who provide hair transplants are plastic surgeons, so they work on the face as well. In terms of being able to style it, it's not that simple. You know what I mean? I've seen a lot of hair transplants, and I've seen a lot of men struggle to control that hair that's been transplanted into their head. It's not like a nose job. It's not like a brow lift or anything like that. There's a lot more factors that fall into play. Because, for example, if you lift your cheekbones up, that's a straightforward surgery. But when you get a hair transplant, you want hair that you can style. You know what I mean? So if you have to brush it down and have it all waved down or curl, or if you have straighter hair and you want to push it back, you want it all to fall in a direction that you like. You want to be able to style it. And it goes back to what I was talking about earlier. If you have too many grafts that have 3 follicles that were implanted in the front, it'll be difficult to kind of style those hairs. Versus if you had single grafts and you were trying to push your hair back, it would be easier. You know what I mean? Or vice versa. If you want to brush your hair down, you want hairs that are easier to control. If there's 3 hairs growing out of one graft, it's going to be harder for you to control when styling it.
I'm very hard to just fully commit to something with my whole heart, because I'm always thinking about what if this, what if that. I'm always analyzing all the risks with anything that I do. That's just kind of how my mind works. He called me one day It was on a Thursday. I would never forget this. I'm in my driveway washing my car. He tells me, he's like, hey, you know, remember that patient standby I told you about? I'm like, yeah. He said, well, we have an opening tomorrow. Tomorrow? He's like, yeah. Do you want it?
Imagine getting that call for surgery. And it's like, tomorrow. Life-changing surgery.
I'm like, long story short, I decided to get the hair transplant. I went to Bosley. I got my hair transplant at Bosley. Why did I get the FUT over the FUE? The long and short of it, price. In that first consultation I had with Greg, the counselor, and Dr. G, forgot the doctor's name. Yeah. They walked through the differences of both of those procedures. The FUT was $2,000 to $3,000, maybe even like $4,000 less than an FUE.
Strip harvesting, yeah. So you can see like they're ripping out a strip of your head, versus with FUE they have like a punch gun that you go and it punches out each individual follicle. But the FUT leaves a mark, man. It leaves a big mark. Like we had guys that would come by the barbershop, and if they didn't tell us they had a hair transplant and they asked you for like a low fade, you brought that low fade a little too high, you could see that big gash, and then suddenly you don't have a fade anymore. You just have the hair going up, a big line from the scar, and then the hair growing on top of that. You know, this specifically, I know he mentions he doesn't have enough money, but FUT is very, very recognizable. I mean, and especially for, like, these are the type of cuts he's rocking, even in his videos. I wouldn't, unless he has hair like mine and he's gonna grow it out like this, I wouldn't go with FUT. Because if you're getting, he gets lower haircuts, right? It's not even medium level, it's lower haircuts. I would not recommend a FUT. So I would have suggested wait until you get the money. Obviously he couldn't, he was in a rush. I would have said FUE from the get-go. With
me already having the concerns about money, it just wasn't going to happen. Now, I did fear having that scar. I did not want a scar in the back of my head. I just did not want that whatsoever. But they convinced me that with the length that I wear my hair, it wouldn't be noticeable. And for the most part, they were right. The scar is not extremely noticeable. I started wearing my hair a little more tapered in the back, and sometimes...
And this is why, guys, no disrespect to Bosley. I don't know if they have any African-American doctors in there, but I'm urging, if you're in med school watching this, you're black, get into this industry, please. Because you talking to a doctor, no disrespect to a white doctor, but the white doctors, I'm assuming he's talking to a white doctor, is telling him to, with the style he rocks, that the scar wouldn't interfere with it. That is completely wrong. And I can tell you that from a consultant standpoint, me specifically, as a barber for 10 plus years, that's wrong. That strip will not be a good look for his haircuts, and he's gonna have to do so much work to hide that. A white doctor who doesn't go understand the black haircut or what black people do with their hair, he can't be giving advice like this. You know what I mean? Like, even hairline advice. Understanding hair length, how hair falls. I remember having to train barbers on how to cut black hair, right? And it's just with straight hair, with white hair, there's no smoothing down. You don't have to smooth it down. With black hair, if you cut against it, you have to cut with the grain too. So if you cut against the grain, you have to cut with the grain 2-3 times, because you have to make it smooth down, because you're lifting it up, the curls all over the place, and then you got to follow back up with the clipper and smooth it down. That is noticeable. Anyways, if you're a black med school student right now, get into plastic surgery and become a hair transplant specialist, please.
I may cut it a little bit lower than other times. And some videos it's been visual, like maybe some lookbooks or how to style videos. It's been noticeable. And I've never really been the biggest fan of having that scar. But that's the reason why I decided to go with the FUT route over the FUE, which is price. A total of, I think, 1,450 grafts. Went in expecting 1,200. I paid for an extra,
a good price. You got a really good price.
100 grafts at a discounted price. When they were doing the procedure We looked, they showed me the mirror and everything, and like, of course I'm like all swollen. I was able to see that some areas just didn't have enough grafts in it, so I asked them to put some more. So we ended up doing another 125 grafts, which ended up being free. My total with this patient standby was $6,530. Ended up getting a $500 discount, which I'm not sure where that came in at. So
he actually ended up paying $4.25 per graft, which is a lot less than the initial quote, which was $8 to $10 per graft, and even cheaper than the doctor we watched at the beginning, who was saying he charges $6 to $8.
Being $6,030. 6 years later, this is my hair. Over the time, my hair has seen its ups and its downs. After I had the hair transplant, through the channel, I wore a lot of hats. I disguised it with a lot of Topic, which is a hair fiber, and I experimented with some more other hairstyles. At one point, I was tapering the sides and the back and just growing the top as long as whatever. I was able to see a difference after a year or so of that growth. And what we decided to do with, of course, the transplant, which is add density in the corners and then lower the hairline a little bit.
And that's a big thing too that nobody ever talks about, is what happens 6 years, 3 to 6 years down the line. It's not about necessarily it finally being complete, which is a year. It takes a year to see your final results. It's what happens after you see your final results. That's when you really experience what the hair transplant is. If I give you a hair unit, okay, I'll put it up on the screen. If I give you a hair unit, your challenge isn't going to be you coming to the shop and getting the hair unit. It's after you leave, when you go home, what happens 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 6 months down the line. And with a hair transplant, it's the same thing. Not 1 year, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 years down the line. What does it look like? That's the results you're looking for. Those are the results you should want. But the fact that it takes so long to see your final result kind of deters people from the reality that the results that they're looking for are 3-4 years down the line, not when the transplant is finally complete.
So after the hair transplant, I would have checkups with the office and kind of look at what my progress had been. And I think I ended up checking in with them like the first 4 years after the hair transplant. I think I would go in the office twice a year. I did have to take finasteride. That was something that was prescribed to me, I think, before having my hair transplant. But I researched everything, and after researching finasteride, I decided I didn't want to take it. You hear a lot of these horrible side effects, and you hear about all these guys who've taken it and experienced this, they experienced that, and I didn't want no parts of it. So I decided not to do it. Even after a year of having my hair.
I just love the transparency he's giving right now. A lot of times people think they get a hair transplant and that's it. You don't do nothing. But you still have to go get your hair cut. You have to take medications, right? You have to take medications. So you got to take finasteride, you got to take minoxidil. Probably have to wash your shampoo with a specific type of shampoo. You got to learn how to style it, because now it's gonna grow in a little different than what you had when you were younger. Hold on, let's look up the side effects of finasteride. Decreased sex drive, trouble getting or keeping an erection, ejaculation disorder, increase in breast size and tenderness, skin rash. Hectic. Would you guys risk that? Comment down below. Would you risk decreased sex drive, trouble getting or keeping an erection, ejaculation disorder for finasteride?
Transplant, I still didn't take it, which was a mistake. It was a mistake because once you transplant hair, the rest of your hair is untouched. That's still prone to DHT. You're going to lose it. Having a hair transplant and not doing anything else, any preventative measures, is one of the biggest mistakes that anyone can make. And I learned that the hard way, because I had this transplanted hair, but I noticed the hair behind it, in the back of, not the back of my head, but like behind that transplanted hair, it was starting to look a little bit thinner. And the doctor was like, "Are you taking a finasteride?" I'm like, "I don't want to take that." And he was like, "I strongly recommend you to take it." So I took it. For the past 4.5, 5 years, I've been taking finasteride. And thankfully, thank you, baby Jesus, I have not had any significant side effects. I started noticing one day that my hair was looking thinner and thinner.
So let's see what the side effects of minoxidil are. So acne at site of application. So minoxidil for hair typically is a topical solution. So I would think I've never seen it. I would think it's like a lotion and you just kind of rub it on. So it says acne at site of application, burning of scalp, facial hair growth, increased hair loss. Side effects, a side effect of minoxidil, which is what he has to take to maintain his hair transplant or his hair growth, is increased hair loss. How's that the side effect? That's crazy. That's absolutely insane. I've never heard of that. Inflammation or soreness at root of hair, reddened skin, swelling of face. That sounds pretty hectic. Again, finasteride, minoxidil, that's a byproduct. When you get a hair transplant, you must take these medications.
And thinner. I feel like I was taking my finasteride at that time. Maybe I wasn't. I really don't remember. Started using the fibers again. I started doing more research, and at this point I was like, I need another hair transplant, because I thought I was gonna have to do more to not lose more hair or to not thin anymore. Started doing more research, and I learned about something called minoxidil. That stuff is amazing. Minoxidil is great. I took it for several months to a year, better part of a year, but I eventually stopped. I stopped taking minoxidil because I didn't like the side effects of it. Some time ago, about a month or so ago, maybe a couple months ago, I did a week in my life vlog, and in that vlog, you guys saw
this is a journeyman right here.
This is a journeyman that had lasers just shining on my head, and that is a hair laser cap. And what that does is it uses FDA approved lasers.
Shout out to I Am Real P. That was very insightful. I really appreciate the thorough extent he went to. If you watch the full video, I'll leave the full video in the description so you guys can watch the full video, but this video was longer than this, and yeah, that was a really good video. Shout out to I Am Real P. If you're experiencing hair loss, yeah, definitely you should go subscribe to him. He's on point, and he really makes good videos. I don't see videos like this typically when it comes to hair transplants. You'll usually see like iPhone quality type videos, so it's really good. I just want to comment one thing. He got a hair loss helmet. And I'm gonna tell you about one of my clients who was using this. So he went to a hair club, and I think it's called the I Restore Professional Laser Hair Growth Helmet, right? So he ended up paying $8,000 to have that very helmet shoot lasers at his head, and they did that for like a year and a half. And his hair loss stayed bad. It didn't get good. It was bad. It never got better. Like his hair never started growing more. But that, to me, that was a little crazy, because I have to look into that, and I don't really understand what it does. Actually, honestly, guys, and I'm not gonna toot my own horn, but this is right now, in my opinion, the best option. If you want to look A1 fly every day, 6 months. Give it 6 months. Give a hair unit 6 months. If you don't like it, it's not for you. But give it 6 months. Give a hair unit 6 months, and you won't regret it. You will not regret it. You will not regret it. Anyways, shout out to I Am Real P for the video. That was a great video, and I actually have another one that he put out recently that I'm going to react to in a video soon. So thank you guys for watching. Like, comment, subscribe. Any questions or comments? I know you guys have comments. Please leave them down below. Leave some comments down below. And if there's any videos you guys want me to make, now is the time. Now is the time, because I'm making a lot of videos right now. Take crumbs, make bread. Damps.